Welcome everyone to our open discussion and workshop on outreach and communication. I'm Francisca Elmer. I'm one of the organizers of Global Coral Reef Week, and we will hear today from Robby Thigpen, who was one of our plenary speakers and is the founder of Marine Conservation Without Borders. And we will also hear from Neus Figueras, who is the author of Lorac, which is a fiction book on corals. And they will help us with their experience to become better communicators and to be better at outreach and storytelling. We also have 3 exercises for you, which I will introduce after the speakers. And please feel free to do these exercises, stop the video and do the exercise, and then come back to hear the rest of the workshop. I hope you have fun.
And we had to create some terms to describe what we're doing, like biocultural constants, for example, or ethnotranslator or mutualistic lexicography. And we also are using some new words that we use a little bit differently. One of those words that I've just become fond of lately is code switching. And I looked up a bunch of definitions today or this morning. And if it sounds like I just built this presentation this morning, I did. But I looked up some definitions, and this is the closest definition I could find that approximates what we're doing. It's when someone changes their language based on who they are with, typically to fit in better with that group. I don't think you actually have to change the first language you're using to do this. I think you can code switch within a language, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. A while back, my first research in Belize was stable isotope analysis of lobsters. And this is one of the things that came out of that. And this is, just basic science. And even in a basic science abstract, I wrote the Spiny lobster fishery is the most culturally and economically important fishery in the Caribbean basin. I see like culture has always been dogging me. But for those of you who don't know, this is kind of how stable isotope analysis of food webs work. You get 3 units of nitrogen, Del nitrogen 15 for 1 trophic level, and 1 unit of carbon to define the carbon source. So here we got the lion in red that ate the zebra that ate the grass, and that's kind of how it works in a nutshell. The first data I got back looked like this, and those circles are the lobsters of different ages, different sizes. And those triangles and other shapes are other fish. And what we see here, we see some cannibalism going on from the larger to the smaller lobsters. And we also see that they're eating fish and all. These guys are literally predators their entire lives. And so we filtered out that because we were mainly just looking at the lobster. The other stuff was just some fun data. And what we've got, I broke down the lobsters into 4 different groups. The purulus form, or what happens is the lobsters, when they're hatched at the reef, they go out and live in the pelagic, in the water column, and they feed out there as phyllosoma larvae. And then they'll molt as purulus larvae and swim back in. And at that point, they don't have a gut, so they can't eat between that period of time. So I did all my pelagic projections from these phyllosoma larvae after they'd been recruited to the seagrass, to the algal mats. That's what these blue ones are. That one over there to the side, I think that was just a contaminated sample size. The green are the algal stage lobsters, the orange are the juveniles, and the reds are the adults. And we got to sort about, nitrogen and carbon here. Oh, I forgot how I was doing this. So anyway, we looked at it a little bit differently, and after we got that sorted out. And this is what it looked at, which looks a little bit more like what we would have expected. And, so this looks kind of interesting, but what's this telling us? And I said, well, what if I sort by size, age? And that's what we did. And we got a pretty good little thing here. You can just see it's almost like a stair step on the shift in the diet on up to the adults. And the adults that we have here are not huge adults. They're good size, but not huge. And even then, if you'll remember back that other slide, they were up there rubbing elbows with some of the top predators in the system. And so I gave this presentation at a biology conference. However, because of my relationship with my fishermen friends and conversation we had, I also owed it to them to share with them my material and what I'd found. And so I did. And I came back to talk with Terry and June and Polo and Mr. Tony at the co-op. And I explained this to them. And certainly I wouldn't be talking about Dale nitrogen 15 or any of those things, or elucidating food webs. That's not a language I could use. These men's ecological knowledge system it's an oral tradition. And so, but we talked about it. We talked about the cannibalism, and oh gosh, that sparked up a conversation. And they said, well, you know, Robby, this and this and this and this. And so we had an in-depth discussion of this stable isotope analysis project in their vernacular. And we didn't switch languages. We just, you know, I did switch languages. I spoke it all that. Well, actually, when I gave the presentation, it was in Spanish, but I collected my data in English. I discussed this with them in English, but we still code switched from, you know, I code switched from the language of an academic or a biologist to the language that I could communicate with these people here. And that's what we have to be able to do, because we're not communicating with the public. The onus is on us to communicate with our audience. It's not on the audience's responsibility to understand us. And I'm going to give you one quick example here of something. And here's a couple of books we're working on right now. These are these have a lot richer content than our prototype. And should have these ready in September, October. And so they're going to kind of give away a prize. I'll be giving away edition, either one of these you want. And they'll be either in Maya in Spanish or Maya in English, your choice. And all you have to do is tell me the action that I'm describing in this next slide. Now, these are words that I have said before. And I'm going to read them to you just to make sure. They're all words that you all know. It's an 8.8 second rock drop. I did a solid 7 before I dumped. Now, can anyone got any idea what I'm talking about there? What action I'm describing?
If you know, you can put it in the chat, and you will win the prize.
Yeah, but I'm thinking everybody knows. But this is stuff that a lot of people in North America would know the answer to, and they would be, you know, they could give me a very specific answer. They might say something like, "You did 7 off the bridge," or something like that. And what I'm describing is this: base jumping off the New River Gorge Bridge quite some time ago. I did a 7-second free fall before I initiated deployment. And the thing is, I mean, that's literally code switching. I think we all code switch in our daily lives more than we think we do. For example, the vernacular we use to describe when we're scuba diving. That's a little bit different than the way we use some of those same terms when we're talking to somebody walking down the street. And so we really need to be aware of that and think, how can we better communicate with our audience? One thing I want to add about that picture of me with my canopy deploying there, I got almost 1,000 base jumps, and this project that I'm working on now is the most exciting thing I've ever done in my life. And so let's think about how we are talking to our audience, and whoever that audience may be, so that we can communicate with them the best. And thank you for your little bit of your time. Gracias por su atención.
Robby, can you try to unshare your screen?
Oh.
Yes, that's the button.
Excellent.
All right, so now I'm going to start you off with your first little assignment. So as I told you before, it's really important to know which audiences you can actually address with your communication and your outreach. You shouldn't just address everybody. And as Catherine Hayhoe said, and Robby's example is great as well, is that you should choose an audience that you are familiar with, that you are part of, that you know the language of. Some good examples for this is also the MPA Connect. So I got an email today from Emma Dole, who is part of the MPA Connect, some of their stuff. They are doing outreach materials specifically for MPA managers. And so their mission is to get clear science communications to MPA managers on emerging issues in the Caribbean, such as lionfish, sargassum, stony coral tissue loss disease. And they make a lot of infographic, ArcGIS stories, and dashboards. And they said they're really, really successful because they have a target audience. So for this first little breakout rooms, I'm going to put you with 2 or 3 other people. And I want you to talk to each other. You get about 7 minutes to, and if you have pen and paper, list it down as well, and come up with as many audiences you could address, like how as many groups you are part of, which aren't scientists, marine people, or environmentalists who are outside of your bubble. If you can't come up with anyone, then maybe think about and discuss why that is like that in your life and whether or not you want to change it or not. So for the second exercise, I want you guys to practice a bit of code switching. I'm going to put you again in groups of 2 or 3. And I want you to think about maybe some research you are doing and how you would explain that to your group of friends, your grandma, or maybe a specific group you would want to tell, whether it's government, fishermen. How would you say that? An example from Robby's talk is he talked about gut content analysis, which is the scientific term. But when he did gut content analysis with his dad, it was called cleaning fish. Because that's literally what you do when you do a gut content analysis. So I'm gonna give you guys about 10 minutes in the chat room, in the breakout rooms, and talk to each other. Maybe you have the same type of audience, maybe you don't, and you can switch a bit and figure out how you would say these things to a different audience. All right, I don't see anybody else who wants to share. We also got Neus Figueras on the call here. Some of you may know her. She wrote a really cool book about a fiction book about coral reefs. And she learned how to write fiction and stories, and she would like to share with us a bit how to do that, or her experience of it.
Well, thank you, Francisca, for your introduction. This is the book Francisca mentioned. It's called Lorac, which is an anagram of the word coral, because corals play an important part in this book. But and I want to share you some of the things I learned while I was learning how to perform creative writing. You don't need to write a book because you really need a lot of formation and practice to do that. But storytelling techniques really can help you with communication. So I have 3 main tips. And The first one is have a clear idea of what you want to communicate. And one tip for this is less is more, because sometimes we want to explain many things, but we have to bear in mind who our audience is. And it's better to tell them about 3 things, but make them very clear than to explain everything we know, and then they will be either bored or confused. So another important thing is to know who your audience is, as we've said here today, and to emphasize with them. It's not all about the facts, it's about connecting with them. So it has to come from the heart, and we have to identify what they care about. We have to become their friends before starting to explain anything to them. Because sometimes we can have a research topic that people don't care a lot. So it's better to win them. And once we win them, then we can communicate our message. And then the second advice is if you want to communicate this, you have to explain them all the atmosphere around your topic, because they don't know that. It's a world new to them. So in a kind of romantic way to say it, you have to build a wall for them. You have to explain how, the context of your topic. And you can make it very attractive here, and you don't even need imagination at this point, because our world is fantastic. So just describe it with passion, with someone who is in love with life, and they will love it too. And we, as a marine scientist, we have an advantage here, because our world is the marine world. It's a world unknown for many people, because you cannot see through the surface. So here we have a very a great chance to show them something new, something almost magical, something that seems from another world. And I don't know if you remember, for instance, because world building is very important. I think we just watched the movie Avatar. So raise hands if you have watched Avatar. Okay, the world in Avatar was great, and it's set in another planet. But all the elements in Avatar, with regard to the world, not the humanoids, all are real, exist in our Earth. For instance, the seeds of the sacred tree, the little white things that touched the protagonist and saved his life. These are ephiras, which are baby jellyfish. So this world of Avatar that looks so magical, it's just our world. You just have to explain them in a magical way, and they will love it. Well, better than explain them, you have to show them, which is the art of storytelling. Don't say, show it. And when you show, you can also describe not only what you see, also the smell, the feeling, the taste. That's important to get the people into the story. And then the third and last advice is the most difficult one, and it's humanize your topic, because people care about things that they can relate to. So, for instance, with marine mammals, it's quite easy because they have that smiley face, and we can really empathize with marine mammals. But imagine a coral. How can you feel something for a coral? So I have 3 ways to humanize your topic. The first one is, and Francisca did it very well in in her, I don't know if you have watched the results of the poll, her call to action. It's in YouTube, and she did that. She picked a feature of corals, and she linked it to things that we already do as the corals. Or for instance, with fish that mate for life, or the horsefish who carries the babies. You know, pick features that are interesting to them. And then the second tip, if you cannot find any feature that you can think, oh, that's something that we do, or that's something interesting, if you can find anything about that in your topic, then you can find about an utility, you know, a practical output of your topic. For instance, imagine the scientist that was studying the bacteria that were living in Yellowstone. Yellowstone is a volcanic point, so in some cracks, the temperature reached over 200 degrees Celsius. That's not interesting at all. I mean, who cares about bacteria, right? But if you tell the story of a man who was in prison because one day he arrived at home and he found her wife who has been raped and badly beaten by another man. And then he was very worried, but luckily the wife was not dead. But when she woke up, she didn't remember anything. She saw her husband, and she thought that her husband did that to her. So her husband
I think we lost Neus.
only witnessed her wife almost dead. He also went to prison, but he was innocent. And also he lost his wife because his wife thought he was a monster. So that man was very, very, very miserable. But thanks to that scientist that did that research in bacteria in Yellowstone, they could perform the DNA test. So years later, thanks to the DNA test, that man was released. So this is a practical output of a research topic. And then if you cannot find a feature that is interesting or an utility that your research can have, there is a third option. You can introduce a character. You can introduce a character that can humanize your topic. This is what I did in my novel, because that character is gonna transfer the feelings that people need to connect, because emotion is very important, and that's all about the stories. Stories is the best way to unite one idea with emotions. That's a story, and it has worked for centuries. We have used stories since ancient times to explain facts about nature or society. And for this third step to humanize your topic, you need imagination. And that's it for my part. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Any questions for Neus? Yes, Camille?
I'm sorry, maybe I didn't catch it, but what is the difference between the features of the topic that make people relate and the fact of humanizing the topic with a character?
Yeah, the third advice was humanize your topic, and you can do it via 3 ways. One way is finding a feature that can relate to us, like for example, fish that mate for life. Some of us do that as well.
Okay.
The second way to do it is to find a practical output of your topic research that we use and that it's essential to us or that it's useful to us. And the third way to do it is to introduce a character.
So this is an exercise I did a few months ago during another virtual conference, and the person who made us do it is called Franklin Cruz. He lives in Denver, Colorado, and he is an environmentalist, but also a poet at the same time. And he does a lot of outreach and teaching people how to do science communication or storytelling for science, and even has a TED Talk. And I really liked what he did with us, and it's quite easy. So first, he wanted us to pick a natural element we like something in nature we like. And if you really want to learn how to talk better about something you study about, you can also pick your study character. So once you got that, I want you to pick 3 qualities that you like about that element, like 3 important qualities or 3 qualities that make you really like that element. Like why do you like it? Pick only 3. And then once you have those 3, I want you to describe these qualities. So instead of just saying the quality itself, especially like in science, if you think about the introduction or the first paragraph of your research, you always say why your topic or what you're studying is important. For example, coral diseases are important because of this, and that. Of course, coral diseases wouldn't be something I like about nature because it's something I dislike about nature. But instead of just saying those things, I want you to describe them. So those 3 qualities I want you to describe. And really think about your language. So instead of saying, she entered the room, say something like the door creaked, so that people really are in the situation. They hear the sounds, they smell the smells, it's not just about what you're seeing, it's about what you're hearing, what you're smelling, all the different things. So instead of saying exactly what's happening, describe the feelings around it and all the things you can see and hear and feel and touch and smell. So I give you a